I never thought I would see him again. Not here. Not in this quiet corner of my hometown, years after graduation. The place smelled of fresh-cut grass and sizzling barbecue smoke, so mundane and ordinary that it almost hurt. Almost. I was laughing at something harmless that Michael, the transfer student, had said. His hair fell into his eyes, and I pushed it back absent-mindedly, not realizing how intimate that small gesture felt. Michael had a way of laughing that made the air feel lighter, like gravity had loosened its grip just for him. It was impossible not to be drawn in, impossible not to feel the warmth of someone who adored you. And then I saw him, Ethan, the tall, impeccably dressed figure who had once ruled over my teenage life with sharp eyes and sharper words. He looked frozen, not angry, not sad, just stunned. The powerful aura I had feared for years had softened around him, replaced with something that felt painfully human. I felt my chest tighten. Michael noticed, his brow furrowing, but before he could ask, Ethan stepped closer. He didn't speak right away. He just looked, as if seeing me now laughing, alive, loved was an impossible concept he was trying to grasp. Jason, he finally said, his voice low, unsteady. My name on his lips was both a memory and a revelation. I swallowed, trying to push back a tidal wave of old feelings. The humiliation, the control, the late nights of anxiety. And yet, seeing him like this, I couldn't help but notice how much he had changed, or perhaps how much I hadn't noticed in my anger. Michael, sensing the tension, stepped closer to me and whispered, "He's intimidating, huh?" His tone carried no fear, only curiosity, and maybe a little playful challenge. I nodded, forcing a smile. Yeah, he always was. Ethan's gaze flicked to Michael, then back to me. There was a momentous single heartbeat where his eyes betrayed surprise, jealousy, and something unspoken that clawed at the edges of memory. I could feel it. The years had cooled the storm, but there were sparks that refused to die. I didn't expect to see you here, Ethan admitted, his hands tightening briefly at his sides. He was still commanding, still tall, still impossibly handsome, but now there was an awkwardness I hadn't seen before. You're not the only one surprised, I said, the words tasting bitter and sweet at once. We walked slowly toward the old oak tree in the yard, the place where we used to hide after summer parties, pretending the world couldn't see us. Michael followed, curious but giving space, sensing something older, deeper, hovering between Ethan and me. Why are you here? I asked finally, needing the honesty that had been absent during our high school years. Ethan paused, glancing down at his polished shoes, a small sign of unease. I came back for work, but seeing you, it's unexpected. I wasn't ready. His voice was rougher than I remembered, layered with vulnerability. I laughed quietly, a short, ironic sound. You're still full of surprises, aren't you? Always in control, and always caught off guard when life isn't in your script. He looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time, I noticed the tiny lines at the corners of his eyes. He had grown, changed, lived a life I didn't fully know. And yet, beneath it all, the boy who had once made me feel small and embarrassed was still there. Maybe just a little less sharp. Maybe a little more human. Michael, sensing the history between us, smiled softly. I get it. You too. You have a lot of past. Yes, I said simply. The word was heavy but honest. Ethan reached out then, just a tentative touch on my arm, and the world tilted. It wasn't anger or control, Anna Maria, it was an apology. A question, a fragile admission that maybe we had been too young, too foolish, too stubborn to understand what we had. I looked at Michael, who shrugged with a grin, clearly giving me the space I needed. I turned back to Ethan. I've moved on, I whispered, though the truth was more complicated. But seeing you, it brings back a lot. Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. I know I hurt you. I know I embarrassed you. I can't change the past. His voice cracked just slightly, the first real fracture in his armor I had ever witnessed. I wanted to say something clever, something cutting, something that would keep me safe behind walls I had built over years. But I didn't. I let myself feel the weight of the moment, the surreal collision of past pain and present warmth. The sun dipped lower, casting golden light over us, making the scene feel like a dream suspended between yesterday and today. And I realized, with a jolt, that despite everything, the possibility of forgiveness, of something tender, existed here. Ethan's eyes softened further, searching mine. Can we start over? Even just slowly? I took a deep breath, heart hammering. Michael's grin encouraged me silently. And I knew. I nodded, letting the fragile hope take root, letting the summer air carry away some of the old pain. For the first time in years, Ethan smiled, not the arrogant, confident smile of the boy who once humiliated me, but a real, unguarded smile. And I felt something shift inside me too, the tension between fear and longing giving way to possibility. We stood there in the backyard, three figures in a warm evening glow, the past behind us, the present uncertain but full of quiet promise. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of freshly cut grass and barbecue smoke across the yard. I could hear Michael's laughter fading behind us, giving Ethan and me a bubble of space that felt private and electric. "You've changed," I said softly, watching his eyes flicker under the golden sunlight. "Not just in looks. You're different." Ethan chuckled, a low, warm sound that made my chest tighten. "I hope for the better," he admitted. "But some things, some feelings I think never really leave." I swallowed, thinking about the cruel jokes, the whispers, the way he'd once held power over my every move in high school. And yet, looking at him now, standing in that golden light with vulnerability bleeding through his armor, I felt a strange mixture of nostalgia and longing. The boy who had hurt me had grown into a man who could stand before me honestly and maybe even gently. I hesitated, letting my hand brush against his almost accidentally, feeling his warmth beneath my fingers. "I don't know if I'm ready to forget everything, but I want to try to understand you now." Ethan's breath hitched slightly, and he gave the tiniest nod. "I'd like that. I've regretted so many things. And seeing you make me want to be better." We walked slowly along the edge of the yard, the sun lowering itself behind the horizon. Shadows stretched across the white fence, the trees swaying gently in the evening breeze. For the first time in a long time, I felt the possibility of peace. Not the end of all pain, but the start of something fragile and beautiful. "Michael seems happy?" Ethan said, breaking the silence, a faintly jealous undertone hidden in his voice. I laughed softly, shaking my head. "He's wonderful. And he cares about me. Yes, but this," I gestured vaguely between us, "this is different. You and I, we have history, and maybe unfinished business." Ethan's hand found mine, this time intentionally, gripping gently but firmly. "I'm not the same person I was," he murmured, "but I've never stopped caring about you. Even when I hurt you, even when I couldn't show it properly. I cared." Something cracked inside me, old walls, old fears, old grudges giving way to something tentative yet undeniable. I realized I had spent years running from him, from the intensity, from the feelings that had terrified me. And now, standing here, I wanted to feel them fully, without shame, without fear. I care too," I whispered. The words were hesitant, fragile, but real. My heart pounded in my chest, and for the first time in years, I felt the pulse of something genuine between us. We paused under the oak tree, the same one where we had once hidden after summer parties, pretending the world couldn't see us. The memory brought a soft smile to my lips. Ethan's thumb brushed over my knuckles, his eyes searching mine for permission, for connection. "You know," he said quietly, "I used to think love was about control, about holding on. But I see now it's about understanding, about being there even when you're scared." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes despite myself. I think I'm ready to let go of the past. Not forget it, but move forward." Ethan's lips curved into a smile that was pure and unguarded, and he leaned in, brushing his forehead against mine. I'll wait as long as it takes, he whispered. For us. The sun dipped fully behind the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of pink, orange, and lavender. Shadows blended with the warm light, wrapping us in a cocoon of possibility. The air was thick with nostalgia and new beginnings, the kind of quiet intensity that made every heartbeat count. Michael, sensing it was our moment, gave us a thumbs up from a few steps back, smiling knowingly. I waved at him, grateful for his patience, grateful for the way he had brought light to a moment that had threatened to drown in old pain. Ethan squeezed my hand, a simple gesture loaded with promise. We don't need to rush, he said, but I want to try. With you. No games. No control. Just us. I laughed softly, leaning into his warmth. I'd like that, I think. I've always wanted that, even when I didn't know it. We stood there, hand in hand, the quiet suburban neighborhood wrapping around us like a soft blanket. The past no longer threatened. It was a memory, a lesson, a bridge that had brought us here. Ethan's eyes searched mine once more, the same intensity one had feared, but now tempered with care and respect. I'm not perfect, he admitted. I never will be, but I want to be with you. If you'll let me. I will, I whispered, my voice steady now, filled with a mixture of relief and exhilaration. Because I've missed you, even if I didn't realize it. And then he kissed me, not with the urgency of a teenager trying to prove something, but with the patience and tenderness of someone who had learned the value of love through mistakes and time. I felt every old scar, every memory of hurt, soften under the warmth of that kiss. When we finally pulled apart, we rested our foreheads together, breathing in unison. The night had settled in, stars beginning to peek through the fading sky. The world felt vast and limitless, but in that moment, it was just the two of us learning, forgiving, and discovering the love that had always been waiting beneath the layers of pride and pain. I never thought we'd get here, Ethan murmured, his voice almost lost in the whispering wind. Neither did I admitted, smiling despite the tears that threatened. But here we are, and I think this is how it should be. The night wrapped around us like a promise, the past behind us, the future uncertain but full of hope. And for the first time in years, I felt safe, cherished, and fully alive in the presence of the boy who had once made me feel small, now the man who made me feel complete. We walked back toward the house together, hands intertwined, hearts cautiously but willingly open. And for the first time, I realized that love was not about power or control or past mistakes. It was about connection, understanding, and the courage to give your heart again. Ethan glanced at me, a small, shy smile tugging at his lips. We'll figure it out. Together. Yes, I said, squeezing his hand. Together. The night embraced us, the quiet neighborhood humming with life around us. And I knew that whatever came next, we would face it side by side, hearts mended and ready for a future that had been waiting for us all along. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.